Welcome back to the Keeping It Real with KC podcast. I, of course, am your host, KC Phoenix. And yeah, it's time for a daily thought. I haven't done a daily thought in almost a month because, as some of you may already know, I've been focusing mostly on doing the tarot card readings. But obviously, this channel is more than that. I do the lifestyle, news, entertainment, sports, even though I don't really watch sports, but these are minor details and all that other jazzy stuff. So, anyways, before I go any further, KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. This podcast is carried on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Overcast, Bullhorn, Amazon Music, Audible, and several other podcasting platforms. Please feel free to listen to this podcast on whatever platform is most convenient for you. KIRWKC on all the social media platforms. Got that out the way. Now, for the daily thought, I need to take a sip of water too. I'm talking about how sometimes your value is hidden from you. Okay, had to get that sip of water. And I know you've heard like God hides your value from other people at times so they can't partake in whatever blessings you may be receiving in the future. But also, another part of that is where your value is hidden from yourself. And some people may not realize this. And obviously this isn't going to be in every case, but in some cases it is. I'm sure you read those stories all the time or hear about those stories of people who have like old stuff in their attic or in their basement or in their garage, and they find out that it's worth a lot of money, whether it's antiques or what have you. You may have, I'm just trying to think of something off the top of my head. You may have an old video game. As a matter of fact, I was just reading something about that. I don't know if you heard of the Def Jam wrestling game or whatever it was, Fight Night or something like that. That game is like worth $300 now. Obviously it didn't cost that much then, but now because it's not available anymore, it's worth a lot more. And there are other things out there worth money. Now for some people, they may not even know that. They wouldn't know. But for those who they specialize in recognizing the value of certain things, they will know. It's almost where if you take an antique to an antique dealer, the antique dealer will tell you what the value is because the antique dealer recognizes the value in things. You may not see the value in it. That may be the same for you, where you don't see the value in yourself, but someone sees the value in you. I'll give you another example. Back, how long ago was that? Probably about 30 years ago. My grandmother's aunt had a cabinet. And there were two cabinets in my grandmother's house. And one of the cabinets my mother wanted, and my mother was just like, well, I'm going to take that cabinet. And, my grandmother was like, okay, fine, whatever. So my mother went ahead and took the cabinet, but she was like, you know what, I'm going to get it redone. I'm going to send it to the wood shop and have them refurbish it and all that stuff, or reupholster it, or whatever you want to call it when it comes to wood. And she sent it to the wood shop. They hadn't even finished the job yet. And one of the customers of the shop had happened to see the cabinet. That customer offered them, which obviously they had to tell my mother about it, $10,000 on the spot. It wasn't even finished. They offered them $10,000 on the spot. And these days, not that $10,000 is a lot of money. I mean, you can do a little bit of damage with $10,000, but you know what I mean. But back then, almost 30 years ago, $10,000 was a nice piece of money. Offered $10,000 on the spot. My mother knew that it was worth money, but she didn't know it was worth that much. But to that guy who was the customer of the shop, he knew the value of the cabinet, which is why he offered the $10,000. I'm telling you these things to tell you this. When you have people around you and you don't know your value, that is the opportunity to see how they will treat you. How did they treat you? Because there are people out there who don't know their value, but there are other people around them who consider them valuable and treat them as such. Some people are like, why do you treat me so good? Why are you so nice to me? What is it that you see in me? And those are the people that you probably want in your life, where you didn't see the value in yourself, but they saw the value in you as an individual. They could see that, hey, this person is, and quiet as it's kept, we're all valuable. Because, I mean, we're all related to the same thing. We all come from source. But for some people, where they treat you poorly because they feel you don't have value to them, so they treat you as whatever, and you're not catching it at the time because you don't know what your value is. You may feel that you aren't that valuable. That lets you know what that person is about, which is why sometimes it's good you don't know your own value. It's almost like a prince or a king or a princess or a queen not knowing that they are of royal lineage. Or, you know how in all the old stories, the royal people would go out, but they would disguise themselves as not being royal. And it's interesting on how they're treated when people don't know that they're royalty versus when people do know that they're royalty. You may have people in your circle who don't know that you're royalty, and even you don't know that you're royalty. That lets you know where this person stands. Because if you don't know that you're royalty, but they're treating you like you are royalty, that's probably someone you want to keep around in your circle. But if you don't know that you're royalty, they treat you like you aren't royalty, and then later on, as you continue to, as they say, boss up or glow up or ascend to higher levels, and you start to recognize your value, because like I said before, technically we're all royalty. As you start to recognize your worth, as you start to recognize your value, and you go back in your mind and you're like, wow, they really did not treat me that well. Now, of course, that can fall into you have to teach people how to treat you. However, that can also fall into the character of an individual. Just because someone is willing to allow another person to treat them less than doesn't mean that they should. You should really treat everyone with kindness, courtesy, respect, and all of that other stuff. That should be a given. But when you really analyze all of that, where you at that time, for those of you who didn't know your value, and you start checking like, okay, who treated me like royalty and who treated me less than? That will let you know who the real people are, which, going back to what I said before, is the reason why sometimes your own value is hid from you. Your royal lineage is hid from you. So as time goes on and then you realize who you are, you realize that you come from royal lineage, you can see all of the relationships that you had and determine, okay, wait a second. When I was thought not to be of royal lineage, when I was thought not to be of value, they didn't treat me of value. They didn't recognize my value when they had the opportunity to. You know what? That person might not be the person for me. Or they treated you like you were royalty, even though you didn't know that you were of royal lineage. Again, sometimes God hides your value from you. And that is one of the reasons for that. And that is my daily thought. KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. This podcast is carried on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Overcast, Bullhorn, Amazon Music, Audible, and several other podcasting platforms. Please feel free to listen to this podcast on whatever platform is most convenient for you. KIRWKC on all the social media platforms. Until next time, be blessed.